In this video, we're going to talk about feed optimization and just a little bit of a brief overview to give you a better idea of what it is and what it's about. So, feed optimization is the process of improving the quality of the data in your product feed. So, and there are two distinct areas when it comes to feed optimization. So you're going to be doing one of two things. You're either going to be sort of amending and editing and optimizing the data that you already have in your feed, or there will be an element where you are adding additional information into the feed that is going to make that feed better for your Google Shopping campaigns. So looking at the first element where we're talking about amending data. So the idea here is that you are changing things in your feed that will hopefully improve the performance of your shopping campaigns. And the most common areas where you see this will be editing your product titles and your product descriptions. So you're making your titles more effective so that they contain better and more relevant keywords that you want to show up for. And again, with product descriptions, sometimes it'll be a case of adding certain terms and phrases into your product descriptions, or where I have had experience in the past where I've had to remove certain words from a product description because those words are triggering Google's sort of machine technology, and it's flagging up thinking that it's some kind of product that's not allowed when in fact it is. Where I've had that in the past is for things like skin shampoos or soaps and that kind of thing, which in the description might mention things like, oh, you know, this is a good for skin conditions like eczema and dermatitis and psoriasis. Google will see those things in the product description and think that you're trying to sell some kind of pharmaceutical medication, and obviously that's not the case. So sometimes I have used that to edit my product descriptions so that I have to remove certain words so they don't flag up. But as I say, the most common way we edit data in our product feed is to optimize those product titles to make those more relevant and hopefully make them show up better for better terms and be more profitable basically in our campaigns. But it can apply to any attribute in the feed whatsoever. So you know, anytime you want to change a value, for example, you might have product types that are pulled from your product categories. You might want to change those product types to be something again more relevant with better keywords in, and that's another thing that you can do when you're editing your product. So the other element of optimization is when you are adding additional information into your product feed. Again, the idea of this is to help to improve the performance of your campaigns, but it can also be something that will just help you organize your campaigns better, or also quite commonly to help fix errors or disapprovals that you might have in your feed where Google is flagging up in particular things like your brand, barcode, MPN kind of errors. Sometimes in some platforms it can be hard to get that information directly in your back end of your website. Sometimes it's easier to just add that information in the product feed after it's been generated. So some examples here where we're talking about adding information is we're looking at custom labels. I will be talking in more depth about and explaining more about custom labels later. Product types, shipping labels. So you can set your shipping labels in your feed to help tell Google if you've got particularly complicated shipping. That can be rather than setting your rates in Merchant Center, you'll set your shipping labels and rates inside your feed. And where you might want to bring in additional attributes. So if you sell certain types of products where maybe you want to add color, material, sizes, something like that, where it might just give that extra bit of information that is going to make your campaigns hopefully perform a little bit better, make your products, and things like promotion IDs when you're running merchant promotions, which again we'll be looking at in a different video. But those are the two elements. You're either going to be editing information that's already in your feed, or you're going to be adding additional information to your feed. both aiming obviously to improve performance over all of your campaigns. Now, how do we do this? There are a few ways. So the most obvious way when you're talking about amending data or adding it for that matter, is you're going to actually edit the source data. In other words, you're going to go to your website, you're going to say, I can write a better product title, and then you just, in most cases, you're going to edit the SEO title, say in Shopify or WooCommerce, and you're just going to update that SEO product title, because that's probably the one you're using in your product feed. And that's it. You just edit the information actually on your website. When that's not possible, when that's not practical to actually change the information directly on your site, then there are other methods we can use. And those are supplemental feeds, which are done in Merchant Center, feed rules, which are done in Merchant Center as well. And you can do all of this inside feed management platforms. So like Data Feed Watch, you can do lots of manipulating inside Data Feed Watch of your data before it gets pushed through to Google Merchant Center. So supplemental feeds tend to be where you are adding information or overwriting information that's already in your feed. And feed rules are where they're kind of a bit more dynamic, where you are editing things on the fly and saying, you sort of apply a rule and say, if this condition is this, if this condition exists, then set this attribute or update this attribute to this. Again, obviously, I'm going to be going into this in more detail and to show you how you can use these various things and why you might want to use them as well. But that's giving you hopefully an overview of what feed optimization is. It can be very, very simple case of editing your product titles, and that can be it. You don't have to kind of go all overboard thinking of all the different things and getting your head stuck into all the different ways you could change your feed. But it's just kind of that blanket statement of optimizing your product feed. This is what we're talking about.